The girl by the glass. The rain was soft that night, not heavy like a storm, but gentle like a whisper. Outside a cozy downtown restaurant in Los Angeles, people rushed under umbrellas and hurried into warm spaces, escaping the cool evening chill. But one figure remained still, seated on the cold pavement beside the window, barely noticeable. Her arms were wrapped around her knees, and her clothes were damp from the mist in the air. Inside the restaurant, laughter echoed and glasses clinked as plates full of gourmet meals were passed around. The world seemed to be moving fast inside, so full of life, joy, and noise. But outside everything was slow, quiet, and cold. Keanu Reeves sat at a corner table alone. He wore a black hoodie and a simple smile, the kind that said he wasn't trying to be seen. He had come to this little place often because it reminded him of a time before the cameras, before the headlines, before the sadness that clung to him silently like fog. He wasn't there to be famous. He was there to breathe. He had just finished his main course when his eyes drifted toward the window. For a brief second he thought he saw a reflection, but it wasn't. It was her. A young girl, maybe 11 or 12, sat outside staring through the glass. Not at him, not at the restaurant, but at the food. She didn't blink. She didn't shift. She just watched. Keanu paused. The waiter came by and offered him dessert, but he waved it away. He looked down at the small portion of his dinner he hadn't touched and slowly placed his fork on the plate. Then, something happened. The girl moved her hand, tapped the glass gently, and mouthed something. He couldn't hear her, but he could read her lips. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" Keanu felt something tug at his chest. He motioned for the waiter, boxed up the remaining food, and stood. He didn't walk out the front. He took the back exit, came around the corner, and approached her slowly. She didn't run. She didn't speak. She just looked up at him with the most innocent and tired eyes he had ever seen. Her lips trembled as she looked at the box in his hands. "What's your name?" he asked, kneeling down. She hesitated. "Ava," she whispered. "Hi, Ava," he said softly. "I'm Keanu." "I know," she said, almost smiling but too shy to let it show. He handed her the box, and she held it carefully like it was treasure. She didn't tear into it or eat it right away. She simply sat there staring at it. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu sat beside her on the sidewalk. It wasn't planned. It wasn't for show. It was just a moment that felt right. "Do you have somewhere to go?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Mom is gone. Dad left a long time ago. I just go where it's safe." He didn't speak for a moment. The world seemed too loud for her story. "How long have you been out here?" "A few weeks. Maybe more." Her voice was so calm, as if she had accepted her pain a long time ago, but her eyes gave away everything. The fear, the hunger, the loneliness. Keanu took off his hoodie and placed it around her shoulders. "That's not going to fix everything," she said, almost like an adult. "No," Keanu replied, "but it's a start." The rain grew colder and the streets emptied. The restaurant lights dimmed as closing time neared, but neither of them moved. Ava finally opened the box and began to eat, slowly, with gratitude in every bite. Keanu sat quietly, watching her, his heart growing heavier with each passing second. He didn't know what to do. He didn't have a plan. He just knew he couldn't walk away. Not this time. "Do you like stories?" he asked suddenly. "Yeah," she said with a mouthful of mashed potatoes. "Want to hear one?" Ava nodded. Keanu began to tell her a story. 1. He used to make up for his sister when they were little. It was about a girl who found a magic seed in a forgotten forest. No one believed in her, but she kept watering it every day, even when it didn't grow, even when it looked like nothing was happening, until one day the tiniest green leaf poked through the dirt, and everything changed. Ava leaned closer, listening like a child who hadn't heard kindness in a very long time. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes softened. For the first time in weeks, Her shoulders relaxed, and then she said something that broke Keanu's heart. I used to dream like that, but I stopped. He looked at her, eyes moist with emotion. You can start again. Why? Because someone sees you now. She stared at him, unsure of what to say. No one had seen her in a long time. They looked at her. Yes. But they didn't see her. But Keanu did, and in that moment something changed inside her. Something woke up. The night passed slowly. Keanu didn't leave her side. They talked about movies, cartoons, and dreams she used to have before her mother got sick. She told him about her school, how she loved art, and how she used to paint suns with smiling faces. I stopped drawing when Mom got worse, she said. I didn't want to draw without her. Keanu understood grief, more than most people. He nodded, not trying to fix her pain, but sitting with it. Do you still have your drawings? Ava pulled out a small folded paper from her bag. It was worn and stained, but inside was a drawing of a sun with wide eyes and a big smile. Under it, a stick figure held a flower. That's me, she said, and that was her favorite flower. Keanu didn't speak. He took the drawing carefully and held it like it was sacred. Can I keep this? He asked. Ava looked surprised. You want it? Yes. It's beautiful. She blushed, the first real smile peeking through her tired expression. By morning, the clouds parted. Sunlight spread across the street, warming the sidewalk where they sat. Keanu stood and reached out a hand. Let's get breakfast, he said. Ava paused. Do I have to leave this spot? Only if you want to. She nodded slowly and took his hand. As they walked away, no one knew what had happened that night. No one saw the miracle that took place on that small sidewalk. But for two people, the world had shifted. And somewhere inside her little heart, the seed had started to grow again. The seed begins to grow. Keanu and Ava walked slowly along the empty street. The sun still low in the sky. The morning light made the city look almost kind. The sidewalk sparkled with leftover rain, and birds chirped in trees that swayed gently in the breeze. Ava's tiny fingers gripped Keanu's hand. He felt the coldness in her skin and the quiet weight of her exhaustion. Yet there was something else too, something fragile but real. Hope. They passed people rushing to work, none of them noticing the man in the hoodie and the small girl beside him. He liked it that way. Fame meant nothing in that moment. He wasn't a celebrity. He was just a man walking with a little girl who needed someone to care. Do you like pancakes? Keanu asked, glancing down at her. Ava blinked and gave a sleepy nod. I used to. Let's see if we can change that to I do. They turned the corner and stepped into a quiet diner. It wasn't fancy like the one from last night. It was cozy, filled with old booths, warm smells, and soft music from a jukebox in the corner. The waitress smiled at Keanu as they entered, but then her eyes moved to Ava. She frowned. Her smile faded. I'll be with you in a moment, she said quickly, walking to the back. Keanu noticed the shift. Ava noticed too. Her shoulders tensed. They don't like when kids like me come in, she whispered. Keanu's jaw tightened. What kind of kids? Ava looked down. Dirty, hungry, alone. He wanted to say something right then, but instead he led her to a booth and helped her sit. They'll see you soon, he said softly. Just give them a moment. A man from the next table turned around. He looked sharp, dressed in a crisp suit with a watch that probably cost more than a car. Hey, he said sharply to Keanu. This is a family diner, not a place for strays. Keanu stared at him calmly. She's with me, the man scoffed. Then you should know better. Ava shrank into the seat. Her lip quivered. Shame rushed over her like a wave. But Keanu didn't break eye contact with the man. You have no idea who she is, he said firmly. The man laughed. Yeah? And who are you? Before Keanu could answer, the waitress returned. She looked between the two men, sensing the tension. Keanu spoke softly to her. She's just here for breakfast. Can we have some pancakes and maybe hot cocoa? The waitress hesitated, then nodded and walked away. Ava sat in silence. Her eyes were glassy. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. "I shouldn't have come in," she whispered. "You belong here just like anyone else," Keanu replied. "But people don't see it that way." He looked at her. "Sometimes people need their eyes opened." The man in the suit kept shaking his head, muttering under his breath, but Keanu ignored him. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the drawing Ava had given him the night before, and laid it on the table. "You know what I see when I look at this?" he asked. Ava looked at the picture. "Just a sun. I see strength," he said. "I see love. I see someone who made something beautiful even when everything around her was falling apart." Ava blinked, her eyes softening. "No one's ever said that about my drawings. Maybe no one ever looked close enough." The waitress returned, with their food. Pancakes stacked high, steam rising. A cup of cocoa sat beside it with whipped cream on top. Ava stared at it all, stunned. "This is for me." "Every bite," Keanu said. She picked up the fork and took a bite. Her eyes widened. "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," Keanu smiled. "Then we're off to a good start." They ate slowly. For the first time in what felt like years? Ava laughed. It was small at first, a tiny giggle when whipped cream stuck to her nose. But it grew, and it was beautiful. It wasn't just the food. It was the feeling, the safety, the kindness. After breakfast, Keanu paid the bill and left a generous tip. As they walked outside, Ava looked up at him. "Why are you being so nice to me?" He thought about it for a moment. "Because someone should have been nice to me when I was your age." Ava tilted her head. "Were you like me?" "In some ways, yeah," he said. "Lonely, confused, trying to hold on to something good." They walked down the block and Keanu pointed to a small park across the street. They crossed and sat on a bench under a tree. The sun was higher now, and kids played nearby. Ava watched them. Her eyes followed the children swinging and laughing. "Haven't done that in so long," she said quietly. "You want to?" She hesitated, then nodded. Keanu helped her onto the swing, pushed her gently, and watched her smile grow wider with each pass. Her laughter mixed with the wind, echoing through the trees. He sat back down on the bench, watching her fly higher, and for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. But peace doesn't always last. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Keanu, you missed the script meeting. The studio's not happy. They're threatening to pull you from the project." He sighed. He hadn't told anyone where he was. He hadn't planned on vanishing for the day. But none of that mattered right now. Ava hopped off the swing and ran back to him, cheeks red, breathing fast. "That was amazing," she said. He tucked the phone away and smiled. "You were amazing." They walked some more, ending up at a quiet bus stop. She leaned against him, tired from all the emotions. He looked down and saw her eyes fluttering shut. "Ava," he said gently, "do you trust me?" She nodded, not opening her eyes. "I want to help. Not just for today. I want to find you a place to sleep, warm clothes, maybe get you back into school." Her eyes opened slowly. "But I don't have money." "I didn't ask for money," he replied. "Why me?" she asked again, the question deeper now. "Because someone needs to believe in you. And I do." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "Okay." They took a cab to a nearby shelter for young girls. Keanu had heard good things about it. When they arrived, the woman at the desk looked surprised. "Are you Keanu Reeves?" He nodded. "But that's not important. She's the one you should focus on." Ava stepped forward slowly. The woman knelt and smiled kindly. "Hi, sweetheart. We've got warm beds, clean clothes, and a lot of love waiting for you." Ava looked back at Keanu. He nodded. She walked inside, then suddenly turned around and ran back. She hugged him tight, her small arms wrapping around his waist. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered. Keanu's throat tightened. Always. She walked through the doors and they closed behind her. As Keanu stood there, the woman returned with a clipboard. You did something beautiful today, she said. No, he replied. She did. I just watched it happen. Here. Turned and walked away, the sun shining overhead. But in his heart, a miracle had begun. Whispers of the past Keanu didn't go home that night. Instead, he sat in his car parked 2 blocks from the shelter, engine off, hands resting quietly on the steering wheel. The city moved around him, horns, laughter, sirens. But inside the car, everything was still. He kept thinking about Ava. The way she had hugged him. The way her eyes glowed, not because she was rescued, but because someone had finally seen her. He hadn't felt this way in a long time. Keanu closed his eyes and suddenly, memories came back. Memories he had locked away for years. His mother crying in the kitchen late at night. His father's angry voice echoing down the hallway. The sound of a door slamming for the last time. He was around Ava's age when he first felt like the world had turned its back on him. He knew what it was like to hold silence like a shield, to keep your dreams buried deep so no one could crush them. But what no one saw was that inside that silence was a little boy still hoping someone would care. And now, in Ava's eyes, he had seen that same boy again. The next morning, Keanu returned to the shelter. He didn't call ahead. He didn't come with cameras or attention. He came with a sketchbook, a small set of colored pencils, and 2 steaming cups of cocoa. The staff welcomed him quietly, and one of the counselors smiled. "She's in the art room," she said. "Been waiting since sunrise." Keanu followed, the narrow hallway to a bright room filled with tables, drawings pinned to the walls, and a big window letting in morning light. Ava sat near the window, her head down, focused on a blank sheet of paper. He stepped in without a word. She looked up, and the moment she saw him, she grinned. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I would." He handed her the cocoa and sat beside her, placing the sketchbook on the table. "What's this?" she asked. "A new place for your sons." She opened the cover slowly. Blank pages. So many of them. Clean, white, untouched. "I don't know what to draw," she whispered. "Then let's draw together," he said. And for the next hour, they did, side by side, her hands trembling less with each stroke of color. She drew flowers, suns with silly faces, tiny houses with crooked chimneys. Keanu drew too, though his sketches were rough. He wasn't trying to impress her, he was just trying to connect. "You ever miss someone so much it makes your chest hurt?" Ava asked suddenly without looking up. "Every day," Keanu replied. "I miss my mom," she said. "I miss how she used to sing when she cooked. I still hear her voice sometimes, but only when I'm asleep." Keanu nodded, his heart heavy. "She's still with you," he said. "Right here." He touched his chest gently. "You think so?" "I know so." She put down her pencil and looked at him. "Keanu, do you think I could ever be something, like an artist? Or maybe a teacher?" He looked at her, completely serious. "Ava, you already are something. You're brave. You're kind. You survived things that would break most people. You've already done the hardest part, staying alive when everything felt broken." Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she smiled. "You say nice things even when they're hard to believe. That's because you're worth saying them to." A staff member walked in, gently reminding Keanu it was almost time to go. Other girls needed the room for a group activity. He nodded and turned to Ava. "I'll be back tomorrow. Same time." Ava nodded. "I'll save you a seat." They walked to the entrance together, and as he reached the door, she called out, "Keanu." He turned. "Can I give you something?" He walked back and she pulled something from her pocket. A little charm, old, slightly cracked. "My mom gave me this," she said. "It's a lucky charm. I want you to have it." He hesitated. "Ava, are you sure?" "Yes. You gave me hope. I want to give you luck." He knelt and held the charm in his palm. "I'll treasure it." He left with the charm in his hand and something even stronger in his heart. a promise. But the outside world had not paused while he was with Ava. As soon as he reached the street, his phone buzzed again. More missed calls, more angry texts from his team. "You've missed 2 press events. The producers are furious. You're putting your career at risk." Keanu stared at the screen. Then he turned it off. He knew what was important now. Over the next week, Keanu visited Ava every day. They drew. They talked. They walked in the garden behind the shelter. She grew brighter each time. But one morning when Keanu arrived, something felt wrong. The staff at the front desk looked nervous. "Is Ava okay?" he asked quickly. "She's gone," the counselor said. "We're not sure when. She left during the night." Keanu's heart dropped. "What do you mean, gone? We checked her room this morning. Bed untouched, bag gone. We're contacting hospitals, bus station, but there's no sign yet." He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. Was she upset? The counselor shook her head. "No. Actually, she was happier than ever. Yesterday she gave one of our staff a drawing, a picture of you and her, under a tree." Keanu felt his throat tighten. Why would she leave? The counselor lowered her voice. "Some kids, even after they find a little peace, they still carry their fear. Maybe she felt like this wouldn't last. Maybe she ran before someone could take it away." He stood there, silent, unsure what to do. "If she contacts anyone," he said firmly, "please call me immediately." He left the building and walked the same streets they had walked together. Her voice echoed in his memory. "I used to dream like that. But I stopped. He wouldn't let her disappear. Not like this." He spent that night searching, parks, corners, old alleys. But there was no sign of her. Just as he was about to return home, something caught his eye. On a bus stop bench, resting beneath a plastic seat, was a folded paper. He picked it up slowly and opened it. It was a drawing, a sun, smiling, a little girl, a man with long hair and a hoodie, and below it in shaky letters, "Don't give up on me." Keanu clutched the paper to his chest, closed his eyes and whispered, "Never." Missing pieces, silent streets. The city seemed colder now, not because of the weather, but because something precious was missing. Ava. Keanu Reeves stood near the bus stop where he had found her drawing. The crumpled paper was still in his pocket, close to his heart. He had unfolded it so many times that the edges were beginning to tear. He couldn't stop looking at her words. "Don't give up on me." Those 5 words kept him going. The next morning, he met with his team, not in a boardroom, but at a quiet cafe. They were angry, not just annoyed, furious. "Keanu, this movie is supposed to be the comeback of the year," his agent snapped. "We've pushed deadlines, rescheduled press tours, and now you're out chasing a missing girl." He looked up slowly. "She's not just a missing girl, she's Ava. She's a child who trusted me and I let her down." The agent shook his head. "You've always been a kind soul, but kindness doesn't keep contracts alive." Keanu stood up. "Then, cancel the contracts." There was silence, complete stillness in the room. "Are you serious?" another team member asked, stunned. "Absolutely." He dropped his napkin on the table. "Some things are worth more than screen time." They tried to stop him, but he walked out. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew one thing. He was going to find her. He started where they first met, the restaurant. He sat on the same sidewalk, hoping maybe she'd return. Nothing. He walked the streets they had wandered, checked every bus stop, every bench, even the small park where she had swung high into the sky. Then he thought of something. The sketchbook, the one he had given her, was still at the shelter. He rushed back and asked the counselor. "Yes, we kept it safe," she said, handing it to him. Keanu opened the cover. Page after page was filled with new drawings. Each one showed a piece of her journey. Him and her eating pancakes, walking, in the garden, laughing under a tree. But one drawing stopped him cold. It was a building, Not a shelter, not a restaurant, something else, a small corner library. Do you recognize this? He asked the counselor. She nodded. That's St. Francis Library. It's been closed for years, but some kids still go there. It's quiet. Forgotten. Without another word, Keanu ran. It took 30 minutes to reach the place. It was tucked between two old shops. The bricks cracked, the paint faded. The doors were chained shut, but the side gate had been left open. He pushed through the weeds and stepped into the alley. A small window was cracked open. He knelt down and peered inside. Ava? Nothing. He climbed through carefully, finding himself in a dusty old reading room. Broken shelves lined the walls, and faded posters of classic books hung crooked on the peeling paint. Then he heard something. Soft sniffle. Behind a fallen shelf, he walked slowly toward the sound. Ava? There was silence. Then a voice. How did you find me? Keanu stepped around the corner, and there she was, curled up with a blanket, the charm she had given him, clutched tightly in her hand. He knelt beside her. Your drawing led me here. She didn't smile. Her eyes were red. I thought maybe if I left first, it wouldn't hurt when everything was taken away. Keanu sat beside her quietly. I'm not going to disappear, he said. I'm not like the others. But what if they make you go? She whispered. What if the world tells you to leave me behind? He looked at her, his eyes steady. Then I'll tell the world no. Ava broke down. The walls she had built up over weeks, maybe years, finally collapsed. She leaned into him, crying into his chest. He didn't say anything. He just held her. Tight. Like someone who understood pain and chose to stay anyway. After some time, Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes. Did you really stop your movie for me? I did. That's crazy, she said. Maybe, but some things are worth the risk. She smiled through her tears. I missed pancakes. Then let's go get some, he said. They climbed out of the window, back into the morning sun. Keanu called the shelter, letting them know she was safe. But before heading back, he had one more stop. I want to show you something, he said. They arrived at a small gallery, one owned by an old friend of his. Keanu had made a few calls. Inside, paintings lined the walls. Some by famous artists, some by children. And in the center was a blank wall, freshly painted. Keanu walked over to it with Ava. What's this for? She asked. This, he said, handing her a brush, is for your story. Her eyes widened. Me? You. She dipped the brush in paint and stood still for a moment. Then she painted a sun. Big, bright, smiling. What does that mean? The gallery owner asked gently. Ava looked at him. It means I believe in tomorrow. People began to gather slowly. No one knew who the girl was, but they watched in silence as she added flowers, trees, and a little figure with long hair and a hoodie. When she stepped back, the crowd began to clap. Not because she was famous, but because her art spoke something real. A news reporter arrived. They whispered to each other and then approached Keanu. Mr. Reeves, can you tell us who she is? He looked at Ava, then back at the reporter. She's Ava, he said, and she's about to change the world. That night, Ava slept peacefully back at the shelter. But this time, there were new clothes by her bed, a new sketchbook on her table, and a promise hanging in her heart. She was no longer invisible, and, for the first time in forever, she believed she mattered. The story behind the smile sunlight filled the room as Ava woke up, warmth touching her cheeks before her eyes even opened. She stretched, still wrapped in the soft blanket the shelter staff had given her the night before. But something was different. She wasn't afraid. For so long, every new day had started with fear. Fear of where to go, fear of who to trust, fear that she'd be forgotten again. But not today. Today, her name had been painted on a wall. Today, she had stood in a room full of strangers and shared her colors, her heart. Today she felt seen, and she knew exactly why. Keanu. He had kept coming back. He hadn't left when things got messy. He hadn't disappeared like the others. He stayed. And because of that, something inside her had changed. After breakfast, The shelter counselor knocked on her door. "Ava? Someone's here to see you." Her heart leaped and she rushed out into the hall. There he was, standing with a gentle smile holding 2 paper bags. "Morning," he said. "I brought pancakes," she grinned. "With whipped cream?" "Extra." They sat in the garden behind the shelter, surrounded by flowers and soft morning breeze. Birds chirped in the trees, and somewhere in the distance someone was playing a soft tune on a guitar. "I didn't know shelters could feel like home," Ava said between bites. "Sometimes," Keanu said, "home isn't a place, it's a feeling. Or a person." Ava looked up at him. "You feel like home." He tried to reply, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he just nodded. After they finished breakfast, he handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" "A letter," he said. "But not from me. From someone who saw your painting yesterday." She opened it carefully and began to read. The handwriting was neat, but warm. "Dear Ava, your painting stopped me in my tracks. I've been struggling with sadness for months, but when I saw that sun and that little figure standing tall beside it, something inside me woke up. You reminded me that hope can still exist. Thank you for sharing your heart." Rachel Ava looked up, stunned. "Someone felt something because of my drawing?" "Yes," Keanu said. "Your art made them feel seen. The way your story touched me. It's touching others now." Ava's eyes shimmered with something new. Not tears, belief. They spent the rest of the morning in the city, not just walking, but living. They visited a bookstore where Keanu bought her a stack of children's books about artists and dreamers. They went to a thrift shop where she picked out a purple hoodie just like his. And they visited a little art supply store where the owner gave her a free set of brushes after Keanu told him about her gallery wall. As they sat on a bench near a fountain, Ava turned serious. "Do you think my mom would be proud?" Keanu looked at her gently. "She'd be so proud, Ava. Not because you're painting or smiling, but because you didn't give up." Ava nodded slowly. "I still hear her sometimes when I sleep, and I think maybe she sent you." Keanu paused. Maybe she did. But as the sun began to set, their day took a sharp turn. A tall man in a gray coat walked up to them slowly. He looked unsure but determined. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Ava?" She froze. "Who's asking?" "My name's Derek. I work for Child Services. We've been tracking your case. Someone sent in a tip after seeing your painting on the news." Ava's face went pale. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. "No, sweetheart," Derek said gently. "But we found someone who might be family." Keanu stood protectively. "Family?" Derek nodded. "Your aunt, your mother's sister. She's been looking for you since your mom passed. No one told her where you went. The system failed." Ava was silent. "She's in town. Would you be willing to meet her?" Ava turned to Keanu, eyes wide, scared. He knelt beside her. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but sometimes the people we need the most are waiting to find us." After a long moment, Ava nodded. "Okay, I'll meet her." They walked together to a small nearby office building where Child Services had arranged the meeting. As they stepped inside, the air felt heavy. Quiet. In the waiting room sat a woman with dark hair pulled into a low bun. Her hands trembled in her lap and her eyes were red from crying. When she saw Ava, she stood up slowly. "Ava," she said, voice breaking. Ava didn't answer right away. She just stared. Then something broke. Something that had been hiding in her chest for so long. "Aunt Lily." The woman nodded, tears running down her cheeks. Ava ran into her arms, holding tight like she never wanted to let go. They stayed that way for a long time, rocking gently, both crying. 2 pieces of a broken family finally fitting back together. Keanu watched quietly from the doorway, his heart full. A few minutes later, Lily looked at him. "You must be Keanu. I don't know what to say. Just take care of her," he said softly. "I will," she promised. Ava walked back to him, hugging him once more. Are you going to go now? She asked, her voice small. Only if you're ready, he said. But I'll never be far. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook. On the last page, she had drawn something new. Herself holding hands with two people. One was her aunt. The other was him. She handed it to him. This is for you. He smiled. I'll keep it forever. As he left the building, he looked up at the sky. The stars were just beginning to shine, and he knew, deep in his soul, that the girl who once asked for leftovers had just found a future. When the sun finally rose 3 months later, the world had changed, not just for Ava, but for Keanu too. She now lived in a small apartment with her Aunt Lily in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. Her room had yellow curtains, a bookshelf filled with stories, and a small wooden desk covered in paint splatters and sketches. The walls were filled with her artwork, suns, flowers, people smiling, but her favorite drawing was pinned above her bed, her and Keanu sitting under a tree sharing pancakes. Every day she woke up early, packed her sketchbook into her backpack, and walked to school. And every evening she went home to someone waiting for her, someone who hugged her, someone who asked how her day was. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Meanwhile, Keanu had returned to work, not because the pressure forced him to, but because Ava told him she wanted to see him on screen again. You tell stories too, she had said, just like me. He smiled at the memory of that conversation as he stood backstage at a film festival. The crowd was packed, and the media buzzed with excitement. But Keanu's mind wasn't on the red carpet. It was on something else, someone else. You ready? A producer asked him. Keanu nodded. Let's do it. The lights dimmed. The audience went quiet. The host stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to share a special short film tonight, written by and starring Keanu Reeves. Inspired by a true story. Gasps filled the theater. Cameras flashed. The screen lit up. The film began with a shot of a rainy sidewalk, a girl sitting alone shivering. Inside the restaurant, a man looked out and saw her. The story unfolded slowly, simple, quiet, powerful. The girl's voice narrated the scenes. I thought I was invisible, until someone saw me. Not as a problem, not as a burden, but as a person, inmate. The final scene, the man knelt beside the girl and said, You matter. The lights came back on. The room was silent. Not a sound. Until the applause began, soft at first, then louder and louder, rising like thunder. Keanu stepped onto the stage, his eyes scanning the crowd. And there, in the front row, wearing her purple hoodie, sat Ava. Beside her, Aunt Lily wiped tears from her eyes. Ava stood and walked up to the stage. The host handed her the mic. I didn't know this was about me, she said, her voice a little shaky. The crowd leaned in. But now I know. It's not just about me. It's about every kid who ever felt like they didn't belong. It's for the ones who were forgotten, the ones still waiting. This story is proof that kindness still matters. A pause. I used to sit on sidewalks and ask for leftovers, but now I make my own seat at the table. The room exploded in applause. After the event, reporters swarmed Keanu and Ava. Why did you make this film? One asked. Keanu smiled. Because the world didn't need another blockbuster. It needed a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. Another asked Ava, What's next for you? She looked at Keanu, then back at the cameras. I want to open a place where kids like me can paint and dream, where no one tells them they're not enough. The reporter raised an eyebrow. Do you think that's possible? Ava grinned. Anything's possible when someone believes in you. And she believed it now, not because someone handed her success, but because someone gave her dignity, time, and love when she had nothing left. A few weeks later, with the help of Keanu's quiet donations, the Ava Hope Center opened its doors. The sign outside was simple, colorful, hand-painted. Inside were rows of easels, crayons, paint, music, soft chairs, and a wall that every kid was allowed to draw on. Ava stood by the entrance on the first day, greeting each child with a smile. Keanu arrived just before noon. He walked in, took one look around, and smiled. "You did it," he said. Ava shook her head gently. "We did it." As the kids painted and laughed behind them, Keanu sat beside Ava on a bench in the corner. "You think your mom would be proud?" he asked. "I know she would," Ava replied. "And you know what else?" "What?" "I think someone out there will sit on a sidewalk one day, and maybe they'll remember this place, and feel a little less alone." Keanu nodded. "You saved me," Ava whispered. "No," he said softly. "You saved yourself. I just saw the light." As the sun streamed through the tall windows of the center, Keanu looked up and saw one last surprise on the far wall, a mural. The same sun she always drew, smiling, glowing. But this time, it had words inside it, written in bright red. "Kindness is the miracle." And in that moment, he knew. It was never about leftovers. It was about someone finally being seen, and the miracle that followed.